Brian via YouTube asked, I get a reduced speed threshold for oil pressure switching, P151E code. Anybody familiar with this? 2014 VW Gen3 GLI. I first replaced both the oil switches back at 60k miles.
Kind of complicated. Let me preface it for people not familiar, and maybe I don't know if you're familiar. Gen 3 engines. Gen 3 would be later 2-liter GLIs, Mark 6s, Mark 7s, and then pretty much all current model 2-liter and 1.8T engines use Gen 3 style engines. So Gen 3 engines have a different oil flow setup, or really a control valve oil flow setup, where the bracket on the front of the engine, which is an accessory bracket that also has oil and coolant that runs through it, is something that has oil control valves in it. That means those solenoids control the flow of oil through the engine. I think there's 3 of them total on those engines. So I'm not sure what was replaced. You said oil switches. I assume that means oil pressure switches, which are not the same thing as those oil control valves, which are solenoids. So I'll link to, we'll put up a picture of what that looks like. I think VW has some diagrams of that system that we can show you that at least gives you an idea of how they function and operate. If you're having that fault, it did look like that's an issue related to either oil pressure or oil volume. So you either have an issue with your oil pump, so one of those control valves possibly, or something else mechanically in the engine, because minimum bearing clearance determines minimum oil pressure. So if you have a bearing clearance issue due to main bearings, then you could have a problem there. So I would suggest start by doing an oil pressure test mechanically to verify you have good oil pressure, and then you can maybe look at those other valves to see if you have maybe a control valve that isn't functioning properly.